Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. My name's Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. And Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. And you can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today it's my very special privilege to introduce you to Ed Evarts. Sorry, got a bit of a tongue tie here. And Ed comes to us from Wakefield in Massachusetts. And he is a leadership coach, a team coach, a business strategist, a podcast host, and author who helps successful leaders build their self-awareness so that they can self-manage more effectively. He has several blue chip clients, and he held a leadership role at Iron Mountain, the former Federated Department Stores and the former May Department Stores. And as a coach and as a human resources executive, he has supported leaders in a variety of high impact business areas, including account management, engineering, finance, human resources, information technology, legal, marketing, product development, product management, operations, and sales. Oh my goodness, he has such a great resume. I think I'll hire him for myself and he can just look after my business. That'll be wonderful. Welcome, Ed, and thank you for joining me.
Rose, thank you so much. It is a thrill to be here.
Terrific. Now we're going to talk a little bit about business strategy. So if you could just tell me, please, what your business Excellius Leadership Development does and who you serve, then we can start a conversation.
Great. So Excellius Leadership Development is designed to help leaders build their self-awareness so that they can self-manage more effectively. As you can imagine, a leader who has very high self-awareness about their strengths and areas of opportunities are better to work for than leaders with low self-awareness who don't know their strengths and areas of opportunities and can be sometimes very difficult to work with. So I typically work with successful leaders who are looking to just be more self-aware on how others experience them in the workplace. I also work with teams to help them be more productive and effective. Everybody is on dozens of teams, probably on teams you don't even know that you're on. And you want to ensure that the time you're spending on those teams are productive and effective. And unfortunately, most teams are not well organized, they're not well structured. They don't have a mission, they don't have structure in respect to what they want to do and how they want to do it. And so they might call me in to help them do that. And then the last area that you mentioned, which is of interest, is business strategy. And so this is helping, typically smaller businesses, this is anywhere from $5 to $15 million in revenue, really grow to the next level. A lot of organizations start out with a particular footprint and they're very successful in that footprint, but at some point they need to get bigger. In order to ensure that the economies of scale can continue to apply. So whether it's due to a new geography, a new product and services, a new client, whatever the driver is, I'm called in to help them look at a variety of aspects in respect to their business to help them take logical and thought out next steps in order to succeed.
So in the current I guess, employment climate and business climate, how some of these businesses are having to take on a different footprint, I suppose, than what they originally started out to be. How can you help them to, I guess, find their way in the new direction?
Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of companies who are looking to be a little bit different than they were a year and a half ago is very dependent on size. So really, really big companies, not all, but many, are thinking about, what can we do a little bit differently than we did before? Because after payroll, real estate is typically the number 2 expense of the company. And quite frankly, if you don't need to spend it and can make your company a little bit more productive while not losing the mission, the mission and vision and connectivity of the employees, why not? Let's do it. Smaller companies, which I typically work with, are mostly just going back to the way that they were. They either already had virtual workplaces, and so it's not much different, or they're picking a date sometime probably at the end of the summer so everyone can get through the summer okay, and getting back to a all-person in-place type work environment.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because I know in the United Kingdom, they are still doing work virtually. There's not a lot of people coming into the office, and in Australia, it's pretty much now people are in the office and not a lot working from home. How is it in the US at the moment?
So we're ending the curve in respect to uh, PPE type requirements. It does vary state by state. So it's either a plus or a minus that we have 50 states and they can all sort of do what they want. So some states, it's completely back to normal. Other states are still requiring a face mask and virtual working, but it's slowly eroding. Certainly deaths are going down, cases are going down significantly. I think the United States is at roughly about a 45% fully vaccinated population. So people, whether it's wise or not, and I don't know, I'm not an expert in this area, but whether it's wise or not, are feeling very normal in respect to how they want to behave. Once we got to the kind of penultimate of the pandemic, everybody just wanted to get back to the way they were, right? They wanted to be able to go into a store without a face mask and having to stand on a sticker that said, please stay 6 feet back in front of the person in front of you, things of that nature. So, we're getting back to that environment fairly quickly.
Oh, that's good news. It is good news because, we used to get the little news snippets, and of course, it sounded all doom and gloom. And so, yeah, it's good to know that things are, returning to the new normal, because I don't think we'll ever go back to the old normal. I think that's anyone thinks that they're going to go back to that is got rocks in their head, I reckon.
They call it the new normal, right?
That's
so
it.
It's not the old normal, and it's not the interim normal, but it's the new normal.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And so I guess to strategize, having say that a business has been affected by the pandemic in some way, and they've had to pivot the way they want to do things. So as a good business strategist, what would you advise them to do?
Well, I think they have to be very client facing, which is ensure that they understand what the expectations are of their clients. A couple of companies I work with used to be very face to face with their clients and go visit them and connect with them virtually in person. And then they shift to a virtual type of environment. And so they have to really know and understand what their clients are looking to do and expect of them. And then they need to mirror it, right, in respect to how they operate. They don't want to dictate what they're going to do. They want to ensure that what their clients want to do is what they are, doing and operating. And whether it's in-person meetings or, virtual sessions, that's a key area, Rose, that a lot of companies are looking at.
Yeah, same here. I think people. I know a lot of meetings. It used to be like in person. It used to, you'd have to travel or, find parking in the city or whatever. And now they're doing it virtually, and they're finding themselves saving a heap of money because they don't have to hire a room or travel or do all those other things. So I think that the pandemic has brought one good thing to the world.
Yes, I'm just sitting down. I apologize.
That's no problem. Please make yourself comfortable. No good standing up if you're not comfortable. Now, you've written a book, I see. Virtual book launch party. Is that in September this year?
Well, I've written 2 books. So my first book, Raise Your Visibility and Value, is really based on my 25 years in corporate America and the importance of not just networking, but raising your visibility across your organization and industry. And of course, if you're going to be more visible, you need to add more value. And so it talks both about how to be more visible. And this is true in the business strategy work that I do. A lot of my clients want to be as visible as possible within their industry. And, it's more than showing up for networking events or visiting clients face to face. There's a number of things organizations can do to be as visible as possible in their industry. And then my newest book, which was published last September of 2020, is called Drive Your Career. And that's really based on my last 14 years as a leadership coach and team coach. And it's really 9 stories that I have found resonate with most of the clients that I've worked with over those 14 years. So whether they're a company president or a supervisor, I found that these stories continued to come up again and again and again. And I had one of those shower moments where I said, you know what, this might be the content for a new book. And so it was. And so again, Drive Your Career was published in September. And, the 9 stories I think apply to everybody and are good things to think about in respect to helping drive your career, right? Thinking about where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to be. Don't be a passenger and just wait for somebody else to come save the day. You've got to think it through, and you have to take steps in order to make good progress.
Absolutely. Would you like to share part of a story with us?
Sure. As I mentioned, there are 9 stories, and they all vary level of importance. They may vary in how they resonate with you. One chapter is called Play the Hand You've Been Dealt. And most of the clients I work with love telling me about their workplace as it is today and what they've experienced since they've been there. And, out of courtesy, I let them tell me their story and tell me what they're currently experiencing. And then I'll ask them a question: what are you going to do about it? And what that does, it shifts them from the past to the future, because, the past is interesting, Rose, but it's just not going to dictate where we're going and what we're doing. And so passengers tend to be driven by the past. Drivers recognize the past, but then decide what they want to do and where they want to go. And so I call it Play the Hand You've Been Dealt, because it's a lot like a poker hand. And when you get a poker hand, you can't dictate the cards you're going to get. They're the cards that you've been dealt. And so when I listen politely to people about their story, I say, look, this is the hand you've been dealt. And it's either a really good hand where you're highly valued and you get along with everybody and it's a fantastic place to work, or it's a bad hand where it's not a good environment and you're not getting along with anybody. But regardless of the hand you've been dealt, what are you going to do about it? And so I hope in the book I share some observations and thoughts on some of the things that you can do to play the hand you've been dealt, whether it's a good hand or a bad hand, so that you can make good progress.
Sounds interesting. Yeah, a lot of people are, as you say, they're passengers in their own life, and they don't do things to, I guess, drive themselves forward or to excel or to proceed or succeed. So yeah, it's very good analogy. The cards that you dealt, it's good. I like that. I've got this favourite saying at the moment. It's don't wait for the opportunity, create it. So yeah, I think
right.
You can't just wait around till something happens. You have to go and find it.
Right, and that's the theme of the book. The 9 stories are, what can I do differently than I'm doing today to be more of an owner of my career and drive my career more successfully. So I hope people who read the book take 1 or 2 or 3 stories or next steps on things they can do a little bit differently in order to be more effective.
Yep, perfect. So I guess getting back to business strategy, what do you think people can do now? I mean, other than client facing and doing all that sort of thing, what can they do to, I guess, progress their business, especially through trying to build the business up now that they're out of lockdown?
Well, I think there's 3 things most businesses can do, as we transition. The pandemic was both unexpected and unplanned, which is always problematic for every business. Nobody likes to be hit with a situation that was unplanned for and unexpected. And so I think a lot of companies did pretty well navigating through the coronavirus. First off, you need to really, as I mentioned earlier, connect with your clients and understand what their expectations are and what rules they're putting forth in respect to connectivity with others. Secondly, you want to use this as an opportunity to really re-energize your team, right? A lot of people have now been working from home. We've heard stories of people who really like it and don't want to go back to work, and others who are anxious to get back to work because they just can't be home one more day, right? So you really need to re-energize your workforce and talk about some very specific deadlines and dates. And, I always believe on erring on the side of generosity. So, I wouldn't today say next Monday, we're going to be back at work, but pick a future date so people have time to transition. And the third thing is, seeing if any procedures or policies need reviewing, right? What are we doing a little bit differently than we did before that we didn't expect? Because we might have stumbled on some ideas or solutions that we would not have done if we had not been hit with a pandemic. So, being very retrospective on yourself, as well as very visible with your clients, I think can help most businesses transition very effectively.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you've got to have an open mind these days. You can't just keep doing what you've been doing for 10 years and expect yourself to, progress in the world. I think you've got to change your mindset. You've got to change the way that you do things. That's just my opinion. I think that no one can stay the same anymore.
Yeah, well, you can't at least blindly stay the same, right? You can't say, okay, back to how we were.
Mm,
A lot has changed, and you want to be very knowledgeable on what has changed so that you can navigate it effectively.
yeah, I agree. I think even the staff who stayed home, I think they did a lot of self development while they were at home and not actually, not doing work. And I think that they've become more aware of themselves, and their role in the world now. And I don't think they're going to put up with the stuff that they put up with before. And I think it's really a good idea to get your teams together and find out what is going on and how they can work together more effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. No, no argument there.
Mm. Yeah, I think, having a good leader too, it has to lead from the front. Sometimes, I mean, I know sometimes you have to lead from behind too, because you have to give your staff the opportunity to, you know, be the leader, and let them step up to the plate. So, yeah, you've got to have a leader in your team that knows whether they should step up or step back.
Oh, definitely. The role of a leader, and Drive Your Career talks about a number of leadership-based behaviors like curiosity, listening, and empathy. The role of the leader is critical to helping people navigate through the transition from the pandemic.
Mm, absolutely, I think so. It is really important, and I think a lot of leaders or managers or corporate bosses or whatever need some training in this area. I don't think a lot of them don't even get down to the ground floor and talk to the staff at all, so they wouldn't have a clue what's going on.
They would not. So well, they definitely need to do that, right? They need to reconnect with people. That was one of the three things I mentioned, right?
Mm,
Reconnecting with people and talking about how we want to operate going forward.
yeah, absolutely. So tell me a bit about your podcast, Ed.
Be Brave at Work is a podcast based on stories from professionals who experience bravery in the workplace. And so, hey, Rose, I'm not feeling well.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ed.
I think I need to cut off.
Okay. All right. Well, feel better soon.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Talking with the experts.